Welcome everyone, Sid Walker here, and this is our preview webinar of my sales training and coaching program for relationship-oriented financial advisors and all kinds of sales consultants, let's call them. And just to make sure I know you're hearing me, somebody go in the question box and just say you can hear me there. That would be wonderful. And then my program, the title, there we go. Thank you, everybody. Got lots of people that can hear me. All right. So Selling Without Wrestling is the name of my program, how to have a 90% closing ratio and an abundance of quality referrals without being pushy or controlling. And a lot of, basically that website is free at this point. I made it free about 6 months ago. It used to be $47 a month, and so I'll show you in a second here how to get on there. There's tons of information on there. Some more stuff about referrals and 100 hours of downloadable audio, hundreds of pages of handouts. So I've been a coach for a long time, so I've got a lot of material. So the title today is "Get Your Clients to Gladly Give You Hundreds of Referrals." Now, not each client is going to give you a lot of referrals, but the idea here today is we want to find out who the ones are that are going to give you referrals. That's probably one of the most important things, is ask everybody, and I'll tell you exactly how to do that today so that it's the most agreeable for both you and the client. And then find out who the promoters are, because some people are comfortable with this process, some people aren't. That's okay. And what we'll focus on today, I've got what you'll learn, why referrals are the most powerful lead, and they're practically free most of the time. How to completely overcome your resistance or discomfort toward asking for referrals. I'm an expert on overcoming any kind of fear, resistance, and can give you some really good information there. And then easy referral language that works and keeps everyone smiling. I've got that all documented today. There'll be some handouts, lots of handouts you can access, actually. I don't have any handouts for the webinar, but I'll show you where you can get them. And then strategies for getting 20, 30 referrals, sometimes more, when you do get, someone to say yes. So, okay. All right, let me see if I can get my next slide to work here. There we go. All right. So how to get the most out of this webinar, keep an open mind. My perspective is a little different. I'm a champion of the low-key, super low-key approach. I've got a proven knack for taking some of the most gentle, soft-spoken people and making them highly successful in sales, and particularly in the financial services business. So no more thinking you need to be pushy or controlling to make it big. You can actually be super low-key and be a top producer. I've proven that hundreds of times. I've created some of the biggest producers in the financial services business who swear by this approach. And I like to say my average client's got a 90% closing ratio without using any sales technique whatsoever. You don't need it. Because if you're a relationship-oriented person, it actually gets in the way. I've been a full-time coach for close to 40 years. Started out in the life insurance business right out of college. Did that for about 4.5 years, and then I ended up with Fortune 500 clients before I was 30 doing executive outplacement. That led to some executive coaching. I got certified as a coach in '82 by Cherie Carter Scott. She's considered by many the mother of coaching. I think she's sold 42 million books at this point, so quite a few. She was on Oprah at one point as well. But anyway, I stayed involved in life insurance business as a coach. And I added the investment side in the 80s, and I've coached all kinds of occupations, but I've got a specialty for sure in intangible sales, which includes about 3,500 financial advisors. So everything I talk about today is highly tested, proven with thousands of clients, and I personally have used or use today everything I'm going to talk about. And I'll make you a promise that what I'm going to talk about today will be easier, more fun, and result in more referrals than what most of you are currently doing. And I know some of you are already pretty good at this. It's It's not really that complicated, but there's a few little tricks that make it work, and we'll get to those. So I've got lots of resources for free. Let me see if I can go there. Let me show you. Let's see. Let's try this one. Okay, so if you go to sellingwithoutwrestling.com, that's what the page looks like. It's got yellow on the outside. That's I call it my pitch page. Lots of information about my program here, this website. So if you click on any place where it says free, you can do it up here in the upper left-hand corner, or free down here. Let's try it up here. That'll take you to an opt-in page. Put in your name and address, etc. And then all you need is your username and password, basically. It's what you're going to end up with. And that will take you to this site. It's white on the outside, so it says members only area. So you know you're in the right spot if you've got white on the outside and it says members only area. All right. And then this site is said is free at this point. It was $47 a month, and I'm still adding to it. I've got about 3 or 4 things I want to add. I didn't put it up here yet, but I just put something here, supplemental training. That's the third button over. I just put a really neat program on here called The Living Benefits of Life Insurance. Those are 3 of my top life insurance clients talking about how they sell life insurance. That's an amazing 2-hour program there. So anyway, there's a lot here. Not sure why this is doing this here today. So that's supposed to be a line. I guess it's Chrome. Chrome, you never know what's going to happen with different browsers. So anyway, that gives you an idea how to get to the main site. My coaching philosophy, my failure, well, let's put it this way. The failure rate in the financial services business is 97%. Small business failures up over 80%. My ratio is like 97 success rate. So I'm totally the opposite. And, I've got a few people occasionally that go back to their old job. I get a lot of career changers that want to speed up the process. I've had a bunch of people hire me in my career to just say, I want to find out if I can do this financial services thing in 90 days. I don't want to burn through all my savings kind of thing. So I get a lot of those folks which have, they've got a lot of ability and a lot of people skills, but it takes a certain finesse to get this thing to work. But what I've always found to work is you need to do things. You need to get the things you need to do to fit your values, which including asking for referrals, which we're our focus today. I mean, that always works. Too many coaches learn a system, they teach a system. I mean, that can work, but it's a 10 to 15% success rate. Most people don't relate to a system that much, or they can't use a lot of it. I get a lot of people that hire me as a coach that'll say, I've spent a bunch of money on coaches, but it hasn't really got me what I want. And I usually say, well, that's probably because they're teaching you some kind of system. And of course, people say, yeah. So that I'm big on getting the most critical aspects of your process, which is usually prospecting and interviewing, to feel right. Because if you can get in front of the right people and you've got a high closing ratio without being pushy, you're going to do well. So that tends to be my focus, is how to be a fearless prospector and a brilliant interviewer. All right, let me see if I can go back to my slide here. There we go. Logistics, we'll go 55 minutes. We'll figure for an hour here. I'll do a Q&A. I did one last time. I did a program for WebEx here, and that went fine. So I know if you understand, if you've got to go, I'll end the webinar, and then I'll come back in for a Q&A at the end. We got a lot of people on here today, but this should be able to, if you raise your hand, I should be able to get to most everybody. And then if I don't get to your questions, you can ask me questions as we go. If I don't get to them, I'll do my best. You can call me. I'd rather talk on the phone than read long emails and write long emails. And phone's much easier. I'm very available. So check that out. We'll figure some way to get you in touch with me if you've got a question that doesn't get answered. And then one final thing. A bunch of people already told me they can hear me. One time I muted myself by accident. It was a button I'd never used before. Somehow I hit it. But anyway, one time I went 5 minutes where people couldn't hear me. So if you can't hear me for some reason, I don't ever pause for that long. So let me know right away. I think I know which button that is. I won't try to hit it here today. All right. So let me get this moved over and get to my button here. Let's see if this will work. There we go. All right. So many of you are new to my approach here. I've got lots of people that know me well on the call here, and then a lot of people that are new. So I'm going to go through some real basic stuff fairly quickly here, just to kind of give you a quick sense of what makes me different. Two basic approaches to selling. You've got what I call client controllers and relationship builders. Client controllers, traditional, much more aggressive, pushy, controlling. The goal is to make the sale. If you don't make the sale, you've failed. All right. So that's a pretty clear approach. That's the one we kind of all learn. The relationship builder approach is very different, and that's been evolving for many years. And of course, to me, probably 80% of the people in sales are more relationship oriented, but your average corporation tends to be a more demanding, ego-driven kind of culture, which tends to like the direct approach and to go out and establish a need and then try to talk people into things and answer objections, and that's okay. I'm not trying to talk people out of that in particular, but if you know you're not a traditional person, that you are a relationship builder, and let me give you a few more details. If you're a relationship person, you're not pushy, you're not aggressive, you're not controlling. You want to make people you don't want to make people uncomfortable. You don't like conflict. You want to get along. You want to make friends. You don't want to wrestle with the client. You want to connect. You want good communication. And you want the client to feel good about what you're doing and whatever you're proposing and the language I like to say here. Ideally, you're creating the solution together. In other words, so when I say my average client's got a 90% closing ratio, that's not because they're pushing people to buy. My attitude there is if you're helping people figure out exactly what they want to do, and they like you and they trust you, and it just feels right, why wouldn't they buy it? Well, the answer is they do. I have people that are over 90%, which sounds wild, but it doesn't mean everybody buys right away necessarily. The more complicated the case, they can take longer. But when you're helping people figure out what they want to do, most of them are going to buy something. So if you're a relationship builder, probably the most important thing is to realize you've been trained by wolves, so to speak. You've got all this information in your head. Sometimes I say I spend 80% of my time talking people out of all the junk they've learned. But you've got to get rid of that aggressive approach. If you don't get rid of it, you're operating way below your potential. And you're going to have performance issues with prospecting, referrals, developing centers, interviewing, closing. You name it. If you're a relationship-oriented person and you're trying to do some of the conventional wisdom, which is more pushy, great way to have a 25% closing ratio. It just doesn't work. You're alienating people that want you as a friend and a trusted advisor, which we'll talk about here in a second. So the way below your potential, again, just another way to say it, you're probably not, don't get enough prospects, you don't get enough referrals. You may have prospects, but you can't call them. I'm an expert on call reluctance. I'll touch on that today. I've got the #1 book on Amazon on that topic. And the referral thing, it's an epidemic. People don't ask for referrals, which we'll get into. You're supposed to, in the client controller model, you're supposed to demand referrals, expect referrals, ask for referrals every time you're with people. Those notions are just ridiculous. If you're a relationship builder, all that does is alienate your client or your prospect. They hate it. They don't like pushy people. Most people don't like to be pushed, period, regardless of what the corporations are telling you. So the rules are different. If you're a relationship-oriented person, you've got to learn the different rules. Some of you have learned those kind of by trial and error, but basically, simply said, the conventional wisdom about selling will actually hold you back. All right. That's given me a job, by the way, for 38 years. So I've refined this to death. So there's a lot to it, but it's actually way simpler than what most people. I like to say your average guy complicates everything to death. This business is way simpler than you might think. If you just focus on a few things. Like I said, mostly it's if you can become a fearless prospector and a brilliant interviewer, you're going to do really well. All right. Let me try to, so hang on here. There we go. So how do you erase the conflict? Let me touch on this. There's one example here that just kind of gives you the essence of the shift because it relates to asking referrals. So the paradigm shift here away from being a client controller into a relationship builder, you basically change your intent. And you change your intent from trying to make a sale to helping the client make an educated decision that feels right to him or her, which includes doing nothing. Client controllers can't say doing nothing is an option because if you're a client controller and you don't make this sale, you have failed. Okay, so there's a huge difference right there. Again, you change your intent. This is also, you could say you're changing your intent to being a trusted advisor. You want to move away from being a salesperson and be a trusted advisor. This is how you do it. You change your intent to help the client make an educated decision that feels right to them. All right, so I've got language on this, and there's a handout. It's actually number 10 on the handout archives. I'll show you that again when we're on the website. But basically, the language goes, my job is to help you. Well, let me back up. Another line I like is, I'm bringing different values to the table. I don't do this job like everybody else. My main job here is to help you make educated decisions about your finances or whatever you're doing that feel right to you, which includes doing nothing if that's what feels right. This is not about me trying to talk you into buying a product so you can relax. People physically relax when you say that. Of course, I've got lots of products you can buy, but that's not a requirement for you and I to be friends and for me to help you. And one more thing, I will make you a promise right now. If anything doesn't feel right to you, we're not doing it, period. Does that sound like a fair approach? I mean, that's what people want. They don't know how to ask for it. But that language, and again, I've got all that written out. It's very, very accessible. In fact, I'll show you in a minute where it is. I want to keep moving here for right now. One of my favorite stories, I used to speak a lot. I used to do, 2 or 3 hour afternoon seminars kind of thing, and on this topic and of the low-key approach, basically. But I get one of my favorite, somebody called me the next day, and they said they had an appointment after they did the seminar, and they said they used my opening language. And they said they just went through it. They said they practically read it off the sheet. They said it still worked. They said it was amazing, and they said that it was a younger couple. They said they sat back in the chair, and the wife said, "Wow, we've been praying for somebody like you." That's why you want to start an interview. Okay, so that's available. And again, the client controllers can't use this language. Your average client controller, their attitude pretty much is you can't ask a question you don't know the answer to. You can't ask an open-ended question because you could get a no. There's just lots of weird rules. They're kind of traditional in selling. That just, as a relationship builder, they just don't work. So anyway, try this language. Try my language. You'll be blown away. See, let me show you real. I'll just do this right now. I'll go here. Try this guy. All right, so here I am on the website. All the way to the right, this thing called the Handout Archives. There's just tons of stuff in there. So you go down here in number 10. Opening language, number 13. That's where that is, right there. That I just read. Okay, so it's easy to get to. Go to Selling Without Wrestling and opt in, and then you can get on this website anytime you want for free. All right, so let me see if I can go back to my slide. There we go. Okay. Let me check a couple of things. Looks like we're doing good here. So the main point so far is you want to take the same approach that I'm talking about with your referrals, which is you want to honor the client. Don't be a pushy client controller. Don't ask every time you're with people. The general rule is you ask people for referrals or introductions, whatever you want to call it, when they're feeling good about what you've done. So again, that's our theme here. Honor the client. Don't do anything that's going to irritate them. All right. So let's talk about why referrals are so powerful. I was reading an article the other day. I've got lots of studies that I've collected over the years, but somebody was saying on the affluent people, there have been a number of studies done there, but I mean, about 50% of the people are referred by their accountant or their attorney. I think about 30% are referred by other clients, and that's really what we're talking about today. I've got some stuff I do on, developing centers of influence. We'll see how our time goes, but I've got a lot of that stuff on the website, so you can read it on your own. But basically the idea here is you've got, the whole referral process is really, say, 30%. Let me say that the rest of the other things, direct mail or, advertising. I mean, there's some new things. There's Facebook ads. I don't know the numbers on that exactly. I do a lot on LinkedIn. That's one that works pretty well. So there's a number of different ways to get yourself in front of people today. But 30%, let's say, and that's a big chunk of the business that's been being done by referral. Okay, and for a lot of people, I have a lot of clients. Some of my biggest clients, one of my oldest client, and one of my best friends. I got him from being ready to quit to top 20 with Northwestern Mutual, and took a few years, but we got him there. But he was good at getting referrals. He'd get 100 a month. So there's plenty of people that are good at this, and that's all they do. They don't do anything else. So you can base your whole practice on that if you want. So anyway, back to chemistry, timing, and money. To me, if you're a relationship-oriented advisor, I like to say, again, they have a 90% closing ratio. That's not man on the street. You got to have those three elements. There's got to be chemistry, timing, and money. Chemistry means you like each other. Timing means there's a current need for what you're offering, and money means they got money to buy it. So if you got those three things, you should be closing 90% or better. Again, timing sometimes, the more complicated the case, the longer it's going to take. So chemistry and rapport are similar. Rapport is really a key factor here in terms of referrals. Rapport is having things in common. I think it's a French word. It's been around for a long time. And the more you have in common, the stronger the rapport. That's why you do small talk in the beginning. The purpose of small talk is to find things in common. Because as soon as you find things in common, the relationship goes to a deeper level of rapport. Rapport leads to trust. And so there are different levels of rapport. I'm sure some of you probably study this. I got certified as an NLP practitioner years ago, and I didn't do that much with it. I thought my intuition was better, but they have a lot of neat stuff on this kind of thing, on rapport building. I used to do seminars on nonverbal rapport. That's really fun stuff. It's amazing how powerful that is. But anyway, the idea, different levels of rapport, places and things are easy. If you have similar interests or activity, things that you like to do, those are all in the people or the places and things category. If you know the same people, that's a step deeper. In other words, if you've got the same friends, that involves similar ideas, beliefs, values, that can be an extremely powerful rapport builder. And of course, that's the power of the referral. You've got another person involved. And then it can go even deeper than that, because shared feelings is the most powerful level of rapport. If you've experienced something together, it could be emotional, maybe a dangerous situation, maybe you got in a fight and made up, maybe you all hate the same thing, stuff like that. Those can be very powerful rapport builders. Where you just feel very much a part of the group, or you have a closer relationship with somebody if you've experienced some kind of emotion with it. So, in fact, I teach people in the first interview to create some kind of shared feeling, because that's what endears people to you the most. Get to a feeling level in the first interview. And so the other ways it gets even more powerful is if you've got if the person you're talking to is a good friend, that's going to be even more strong. Let's say a stronger rapport. And then if you've got somebody that has influence, or that is, what's the word? Prestige. Yeah, if you have a prestige introduction or someone who has influence, could be a boss maybe, or somebody that's got some prestige, and it could even be a CPA or an attorney. That could be a prestige or an influential referral. That's the old joke. What's a referral from a CPA? A sale. Okay. So again, there's different levels here, but you want to get the strongest kind of rapport going as you can. And again, that's why a referral is really a more powerful lead than anything else, because you've got so much more rapport built in right away. In fact, I like to say, of all the studies I've read over the years, if you've got a strong referral or a good referral, you're going to make a sale 2 to 3 times more often and in about half the time. Because if you don't have the rapport going in, people tend to trust you until proven otherwise. If you're starting from scratch with people, it just takes longer for them to get to know you and trust you. Whereas if you've got a referral, it moves a lot quicker. And and again, that's not an introduction. It can be pretty light. It could be just an acquaintance. But again, if it's somebody that you know well, or the people respect, that's going to speed everything up. All right, did I get everything on here? I think so. Let's try another slide. So why do advisors resist asking, some of this? You've all been through some of this. You've had a negative experience. A lot of people just wing it. They say, who do you know? Or, if you think of anybody, can you send them my way? That's okay, but that doesn't really amount to anything in terms of results. People typically have a negative experience. They don't get any names, and then they just kind of give up. They stop asking. People sometimes they have a fear of a negative response or making the client uncomfortable. You're putting the client on the spot. You put a ton of work into making this person a client. You don't want to do anything that's going to upset that, which makes total sense. Lack of confidence with the process. Again, that's kind of the people that are winging it. I did a boot camp with Dan Kennedy probably 10 or 15 years ago. I can't remember now, but Kennedy, he writes the No BS books. He used to speak with all the Colin Powell and the presidents and all that stuff for that group. He's a neat guy, and the great speakers, made millions as a marketing guy. But I always liked his line. He said, when you're asking for money, you do not wing it. You know exactly what you're going to say. You rehearse it. You memorize it. You should be able to say it jumping out of an airplane. Okay. And when you're asking for referrals, you're asking for money. So you got to have it down. Do not wing it. You make more money per second prospecting or asking for referrals than any other activity. In the financial services business for sure, and probably some other ones. And then finally, you may have language, but you're not comfortable with it. That's not unusual. You've got client controller language, and you're using that, and it's not working. So, and then there's one other thing too. There's a misperception that if you're a professional, you shouldn't need to ask for referrals. I run into that every once in a while. But if you're you can't compare yourself to accountants, attorneys, doctors. If you've got a problem, you've got a tax problem, you've got a legal battle, you get hurt, physically hurt, you've got to see the professional. You can't. Whereas if you've got money and you're not sure what to do with it, you don't need to see a financial advisor. It's elective. You can do it on your own. A lot of people do. But again, accountants and attorneys and doctors, people need to see them for that specific purpose. The other way to say it is, if accountants, attorneys, and doctors, and probably some other people, if they had to get referrals, they'd all go out of business. Okay, they don't have the same skill that you need to have, which is you have to be a catalyst. You have to initiate prospecting. That's part of your job description. And if you don't get that and embrace that, you're going to struggle. You've got to be a catalyst. You've got to wake up every day, or I've heard other people say, and I feel the same way. I've always been in business for myself. I'm pretty much unemployed till I decide otherwise every day, which usually means get on the phone or get out and talk to people. Talk about people what you do. Okay, so I think that covers that pretty well. You see, a few of you probably have some more ideas of things that have gotten in the way. There's lots of barriers. But anyway, I'm going to give you some ideas here that should solve some problems. So the solution, basically, change your expectation. This is an interesting one. Let me go here. Now, let me see if I can find this guy. Okay. So the social style profile, there's 100 different versions of this. This is one I got years ago. I've kind of created my own. Actually, that's not this one, but anyway, you can see what I've used this in seminars. You've got the two mid, the midline, the vertical line goes up and down. You've got driver and expressive at the top. They're more assertive. That's up here. And then you've got the analytical and the amiables. They're more cautious. Down those two down here. And then if you're more feeling oriented, you're an expressive or an amiable. If you're more thinking oriented, you're a driver or an analytical. So the drivers are 20% of the population. The expressives are 10%. That's the smallest group. Amiables are 50%. We're a very amiable society. We're nice. We're as a country, we like to being good guys, good gals. And then analytical is 20%. So the interesting part here is, so when it comes to asking for referrals, the expressives and the drivers, they like to test their influence. So these folks are pretty easy to get referrals from. Now that's 30% of the population. Now you got 70% of the population down here at the bottom. They need a little more encouragement. But the good news is half of these folks down at the bottom have a backup style that's more assertive. So that's, so basically 50% of the population is going to be open to some kind of referrals just based on social style. And you can get more than that too. If you get good at this, you can get it up into the 70-80% range. But there are some people that just cannot do it no matter what. They can't give you referrals. I mean, that's classic. Like with accountants, I do quite a bit on the center of influence kind of thing. But you can waste a tremendous amount of time with accountants, and attorneys are a little more sales oriented, a little more entrepreneurial. But your average accountant pretty much, and I'm sure you've all had this experience. You give them referrals, you don't get any back. That's not part of the deal. Because they're afraid to death that they could lose a client, or they're just it's kind of like a gift from God that they get clients in the first place. So they're pretty cautious. But at the same time, there are CPAs and attorneys who will refer business, and it's just a matter of finding them. They're out there, and I have a whole process for doing that, which I can show you where that is. All right. Well, anyway, you get the idea about the social style thing. So the good news is, I also want to just point out, you can't get referrals from everybody. Don't even try. That's nuts. If you're a relationship-oriented person and you're pushing people for referrals, all you're doing is disorienting people. All right. So let's let me go to some language here. Let me go back to the website. Let's see, let's do it here. And then I want to go to here. All right, so that's referral sample language. Let's do it here. So this is in a section. This is the second section in the handout archive. I'll show you that before we go here today. This is language that I've used for decades. Occasionally I tweak it a little bit. This says 2014. I think is the last time I updated this. But basically, one of the most important things you can do as a relationship builder is you got to give people a way out. I've got that right at the top. Ask for help, give people a way out. So the way you start the conversation, John, I'd like to ask you for your help, but with one condition. And you pause at people. You used to say, well, sure. How can I help you? And then you come back and say, I don't want your help unless you're comfortable doing so. Does that sound fair? Okay, you got to do something like that. You got to give people a way out. That's probably the most powerful thing you can do to get rid of your own resistance to asking for referrals or introductions or whatever you want to call it. Is you got to tell people it's okay. I don't want you to do this unless you're comfortable. People won't say they won't do it right up front, but they will tell you that they can't do it here, and I'll get to that in a second. So then the next phase here is you want to give them some benefits of the process. Most people don't understand the power of referrals unless you've asked for them, unless you're in a kind of business where you do that. People don't have any concept. So the next thing you say, sure, does that sound fair? Sure. Then you just say, I'd like to talk to you about getting some introductions to people Let me tell you how I like to do this. The main reason being introduced works so well is that when I call someone, I say that I know you. Most people will give me 10 or 15 minutes out of courtesy to you, so I get a chance to see most people. This is a very social process. This is another bullet, that second paragraph there. This is a very social process. It isn't really a sales call. People call it networking today because the worst thing that can happen when I'm introduced to someone is that we become a resource for each other for the future. Okay, very positive spin here. And then another thing, you're qualifying a little bit. I'm not looking for anyone who's in the market to buy anything. I just want to meet people. However, I am looking for people who are doing well financially. Now, you don't. Everything's optional here. You can skip all that if you want, but that's been tested thousands of times by my clients. So I would learn some version of those 3 points. Give them a way out. And then you introduce really what the benefits are. You're teaching people how referrals work, and then you end that process. So John, my question to you is, would you be comfortable introducing me to people that you know on this basis? So that ends it. And now if you get a yes, sure, you can send a letter, you can send a card. I did a lot of that when I was in the life insurance business. You do a PS. It's proven if you put a PS in a letter or a card, that's the first thing people read. You put the referrer's name in there. Some people do texting, that can be very powerful. I mean, a lot of people don't text, so older folks isn't going to work. A lot of people do emails. Some people just get to have a bunch of cards right there and get people to endorse the cards right there and send those cards out to people. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do it, and obviously the stronger the endorsement, the better it's going to be. And again, you've all heard lots of stuff there. I'm not going to get into too much of that, but that gives you the flow of the conversation. And then let's keep going because there's some other really key pieces here that are really fun. So when you get a yes, well, let me say it's important. If somebody says, when you say, okay, my question to you, John, is would you be comfortable introducing me to people you know? Well, let me think about it. Let me get back to you. Let me see if I can come up with some people, or let me talk to them first. Those are all no's. That means they're not comfortable with the process. Doesn't mean they won't give you any referrals, but they're definitely stalling there, and that's okay because one of the things you want when you feel any kind of stall, any kind of hesitation, if it's anything but a sure, I'll help you. Just be careful because you could easily alienate your client. You don't want to do that. So you can even just change the subject to that point. If you don't think it's going anywhere, you can just say, "Fine, that's great. I appreciate any help you can give me," and talk about something else. And that's if you've gotten together to do a meeting, which most of the time you're going to be doing this face to face. Occasionally you can get away with it on the phone, or maybe you're doing some kind of audio visual thing, Skype or Google Hangout or something. If you're talking to people far away. And then, of course, when you get a yes, that's the key. Because here, John, often when I ask people who they know, they go blank, even though they probably know more than 500 people. And so that's some language you can use because a lot of people say, sure, I can help you, but I can't think of anybody right now. You don't ever want to let that go right there. You never want to accept that. I can't think of anybody right now. The old way to do it was you give people categories, friends, successful people, neighbors, advisors, recreation, golf, tennis, whatever. There's 300 categories. Howard White wrote down 300 categories one time, which is way more than you need. You only need a few. But that's more work. I mean, today there's really no excuse for not getting on their LinkedIn profile and coming up with 20 or 30 names of people that you want to meet. Have your assistant do that, or you can do it yourself if you think you're going to do a better job. But when somebody says, "Sure, I'll help you," I can't think of anybody right now. Well, interesting you say that, John. I took some time to get on your LinkedIn profile. I've got a list of 25, 30 people here that you probably know. Can we go through that list and see if there's anybody that might be good? People, if they've said sure, they'll refer you. They're going to say sure. Yeah, let's take a look at your list. And then when you get through the list, and then you can say things like, "Did anybody else come to mind?" Don't just stop at the list because other people are going to pop into their head. But the more names you got there, it gets easy. Oh yeah, I don't know him. I know this guy. He's great. Yeah, use my name. This guy I don't know as well. whatever the conversation is. But it just makes it so much easier if you've got a list of people that they know or know of. And sometimes, sometimes these are going to be strong referrals, and sometimes they're going to be just acquaintances, or they maybe know something about them. They can give you a tip on how to reach them. And then a couple other things that I've had a lot of fun with, and I've gotten other people. This is very powerful. Make them look forward to having you call their friends. Ask the referrer, what do you like about John? I've got Joe there. What do you like about Joe? What's outstanding about this guy? Get them to talk a little bit about what they like about him, what's outstanding, and then you close that section saying, would it be okay if I told him you said that? Man, that just changes everything. In other words, it's really hard for somebody to say no that you've given a really strong compliment to. And the other thing is your referrer can't wait for you to call them and give them the compliment. So everybody loves that piece. So I highly recommend it. Another one I've seen a lot of my clients make a ton of money doing is get permission to check back with the people once you've identified them as somebody that's willing to test their influence. They're willing to give you referrals or introductions. Just ask them, can I call you back in a few months and see who you've met? That's a gold mine. That's a money printing machine right there. I mean, things are a little slow, and you got 20 or 30 people that have said, sure, call me. I'm meeting people all the time. I've got one client I know that gets one good referral a week from one of his clients. The guy's just meeting people all the time, and he doesn't give them all the people. He just cherry picks and gives them the best ones. So you've got clients like that. You've got clients that are totally comfortable testing their influence. You've got some clients that are meeting lots of people, and they're good for a bunch of referrals every year. And they want you to succeed. They believe in you. You're their person. So, again, you just got to find psychologically, you got to find the people willing to test their influence. Not everybody's willing to do it. That doesn't mean they don't like you. That doesn't mean they're going to be a great client and buy lots of whatever you're selling. But don't push people if they're uncomfortable at all with the process. That's asking for trouble. No matter what anybody says, you go to a sales meeting, some guy's going to get up there and tell you what the great language and how he tricked somebody into giving them a bunch of referrals. You don't want to mess with that. If you're a relationship builder, man, you just keep it straight and direct and honor the client. All right. And I've got some other stuff on here. I keep going on this, but promote your success when you get somebody that's helping you out. I mean, take care of them. Give them what you can. There's restrictions on some of that stuff, but there's lots of things you can do for people. All right, and then, so what do you do? How do you approach people? In other words, how do you contact referrals? I've got another handout on the handout archive. There's a lot of good material in there from different seminars that I've done. What do you say in a letter? This is referral sample language. Talk benefits, give them a way out, give them a reputation to live up to, promise to be brief, mention the referrer's name, etc. And then I've got some sample letters. I mean, these have been around a long time, but they work. You can modify them, make them. You could do you could do a text, you could do an email. I used to like to show people the letter I was going to say, and I put a movie star's name in the PS. Prior to my calling, you may want to refer to Matt Damon regarding me and the type of service I offer. Kind of gives me a little. Matt Damon's a client of yours? Well, not really, no. But it's kind of fun. And then there's another one here. You put the name. There's Paul and Jamie Buckman. Get that in the first sentence. So typically, you want the names right up front or in the PS. But again, lots of other variations on this. Sometimes if you can get a card, you can send them. Get somebody to endorse it. Sometimes you can get people on the phone. My sales manager, when I was in the life insurance business, just said, "Let's call him right now. Let's get him on the phone." He was a character, anyway, and that's always scared me to death. But he'd go out with me, and he'd get people on the phone and get me referrals. It was a riot. He was good at it. All right, so that gives you some ideas there on what the solution can be. Let's see if I can go back to my slide here. Well, let me do it this way. All right, so I think we got pretty much everything there. So let's do one more slide here. So opportunities to ask for referrals, deliveries, obviously, whenever you're delivering a product, whatever that happens to be that you're doing, you can arrange to meet with clients. I mean, I'm big on this. Get an appointment with all. I mean, go. The main thing here to remember is take all your clients through this process. If they're not comfortable with it, just pick up on that and go a different direction with the conversation. But I mean, it can be as easy as saying, the telephone language is, I'm in the process of, Bob or Mary, I'm in the process of expanding my business, and I want to get your feedback on some marketing ideas that I've got that I'm working with. And I wondered if we could get together for a cup of coffee. I'd like to get your feedback. It's that simple. Again, I'm in the process of expanding my business. I want to get your feedback on some marketing things that I'm doing. That's the reason for the appointment. Don't make it complicated. And then once you're with them, if you were me, you get into do some small talk, and then, here's some of the stuff I'm doing, to get clients. Here, the websites I've got, or, mail I'm doing. And then if you were me and you wanted to expand your business, how would you go about doing it? And typically that's going to lead to, word of mouth is probably going to be the strongest. That's going to come up in the conversation, and then say, interesting you bring that up. And then you go in, then you start and you say, something I've been wanting to ask you. I'd like to ask for your help, but with one condition. Sure, what's that? I don't want you to help me unless you're comfortable, and you go right into the language. To me, that's the most elegant way to do this I can think of, and I've had hundreds of people tell me where was I 15 years ago or 20 years ago, because it works. And if you've got a list of people, you're going to get 20 or 30 referrals. All right, so teaching interview, that's another one of my big things. Teaching's the guy, Chet Holmes, died a few years ago, I think, wrote some neat stuff on this. He had a book called The Sales Machine, but he was big on what he called marketing, educational marketing. And I've called it, the individual seminar, the teaching interview for 25 years. Same kind of thing. You go out and you teach people stuff. You find people that want to learn things, and in the financial services business, you're trying to help people maximize what they're doing with their money and minimize mistakes. That's simple. You can use that line for almost everything. But a teaching interview, and I have a lot of clients that do this, and that's the way they get a lot of their clients, is just you go out and you teach business owners or you teach regular folks, how the living benefits of life insurance, or how to invest your money wisely, whatever you like to do, you go out and teach people. There's nothing to buy. There's no products at this point. This is an educational process. You're out teaching people, and you go out and you spend your time, you keep it to an educational approach, and then you see, if that leads to, if they want to go to this next meeting, then that becomes obvious. And sometimes people will just say, I think I'm okay for right now, and that's a perfect time to ask for referral, especially with business owners. I've got a number of guys doing this right now. Go in and teach people, how to save some tax money, how to reduce their taxes, how to do better with the money that's just sitting around. One of my clients calls it lazy money. Whatever it happens to be, just go in and teach people things, and then at the end of that process, I mean, if you can't see that it's going to the next interview, or the person says I'm okay, just say, I'd like to ask you for a favor. It's next to impossible to get in to talk to people today without some kind of introduction. Actually, I would probably say that second. The first thing I say, well, let me ask you, has this been helpful to you today? Especially if you know it has. If you can tell the person really has loved what you're doing and they've gotten a lot of insights. If it's really strong, you say, has this been helpful to you? Oh yeah, this has been great. Well, one thing I'd like to ask from you as a favor, if you're comfortable, is it's really hard to get in to talk to people today without some kind of introduction. Would you be comfortable introducing me to some business owners that you know, or some people that you know that I could go give this same presentation to? A lot of people say sure, and you've got some referrals. So anyway, I like that approach. Developing centers. Let's see. Let me show you where that is real quick. In a couple places here. So this core training here, this kind of should be over here, and it's not. That's a $1,000 course. If you go to module 3 on there, prospecting for relationships, That's a good one to listen to. That starts out with referrals. About 15 minutes in, I get into center of influence prospecting. There's a lot of sample language there. There's an interview. Let's see, what is a handout archive I was going to show you too. If you go down here to this second section, it says referral related prospecting. That's where all the referral stuff is. And there's a professional center track. There's just questions you can ask. It's very similar to a client track that I use, but we adapt it for referrals. Golf is a huge thing. We have a lot of great golfers as clients and make a lot of money. Get a lot of clients from the golf course. They play as much as they can in the nicer. I lived in Southern California for 20 years. A lot of those folks are playing year round. How to approach friends, that's a powerful one. I worked with a lot of, I knew a lot of people. I was in the hockey business when went to Michigan State and played ice hockey, grew up on the Canadian border, and I ended up being the manager of an ice arena and the commissioner of a couple men's leagues. I just knew tons of people from that. When I was in the life insurance business, that really helped. So I did a lot of work with friends. And then where the clients are, newsletters on networking. So check out that section. There's a ton of good information there. Okay. All right. So looks like we got about 10 minutes here to wind up. Let me go back to my slide. And so coaching options. A lot of my coaching stuff is on the website, Selling Without Wrestling. I like to say to people, that's all free. If you want more help, Dan Kennedy also had the line. He said, the bigger the do-it-yourself site you build, he said, the longer the line is for coaching, because once people realize you know what you're doing, then they want help. So that's kind of why I made this. I've been doing well with making my coaching, this website free, actually. And I like to say to people, you don't need a coach. You're going to figure out whatever you're working on eventually. But the reason you hire a coach is to speed up the process. I know I cut years off people's process in some cases, and I work very quickly. I can get a lot done in a few hours. So it's, check it out. If you want to, again, I specialize in working with relationship builders, not client controllers. I'm a big on everything's got to feel right to you. If it doesn't feel right, you're not going to do it. So it's a waste of time to learn something you're not going to do. I've interviewed hundreds of, if you interviewed, let's say 100 of my clients and said, what was the biggest thing they got out of the program? I'd say most of them would say confidence, and this confidence and skill to be your authentic self. I've created a lot of $1 million a year producers, regular folks, some of them ready to quit. I got them to $1 million a year in production, which sounds, pretty amazing. But it's never been technique or sales technique or it's always been helping people basically learn to be their authentic selves, to really enjoy this business and find people that they love working with. Chemistry, timing, and money. I've had people tell me that was one of the biggest things they got out of my coaching program is don't work with anybody you don't have chemistry with, no matter how much money they've got. You're going to find out the hard way. If you don't have chemistry with somebody and they get a lot of money, they become a problem. If you're a relationship person, if you're a client controller, you don't care about that stuff. And then I'm also, something that makes me somewhat unusual as a resource is I'm spirit-based. I spent 10 years as a lay monk in a monastery in Long Beach, California, run by women. There were guys there, but it was run by women. So, and a lay monk means I lived across the street, spent all my free time there. I didn't leave in the monastery. Some people did, but I lived across the street. And that was an amazing 10 years. It was the most advanced program on intuition you could ever imagine. So I call myself spiritual, not religious, even with 10 years around the monastery. Because even there, to me, it was way more important to trust your intuition than it was to be able to quote the Bible or some other religious source, Intuition's a big deal. In fact, in 38 years of coaching, the two most important things, and I'll probably touch on this again in the Q&A, the two most important things I have learned, I've had huge breakthroughs in recent years. That's one of my new books. I'll show you in a second. But the ability to learn how to ignore your negative ego, the negative chatter coming from your ego. Most people think their ego is a source of self-esteem and self-worth. That's about 1%. The other 99% is just a nasty piece of work, constantly criticizing you and other people. You got to learn to ignore your ego, which takes some guts. And then the other thing is you got to trust your intuitive instincts as if your life depended on it. Those are the two things that have gotten people from, regular mediocre incomes to, $1 million a year or more. So it's not what you think, probably. So anyway, if you want to talk about coaching, doesn't cost anything. Talk for 30 minutes or so. Get to know each other a little bit. I can usually give you some ideas just in that phone call. I do that a lot. I spend a lot of time talking on the phone, so that's my job. I don't travel to speak anymore. I do these webinars once in a while, but so I got lots of time to talk on the phone. And if you my calendar link is in my emails. I'll send everybody an email here. I should have a replay. I'll send that out. And I'll send out whatever else I think is appropriate. And then there's a calendar link there. There's one on my LinkedIn page. There's I don't know, not sure where it is. I've got to look on my website. I have several websites. It's on some of them, but anyway, if you can't find it, send me an email. Just ask me for my calendar link, and I'll send it to you. All right. And then let's do. I've got 7 books on Amazon. There's a list of those on sidwalker.com. That's kind of my coaching resource site. What I was showing you today is sellingwithoutwrestling.com. That's the big free one. Insurance WebEx has a list of my books. Amazon, if you do search for books by Sid Walker. I actually have a book on referrals, on referrals. I have not updated the paperback, so just if you want the book, if you like to read something, just buy the Kindle on Amazon. Don't get the paperback. The Kindle's updated. The paperback is not. Then also, the only book I haven't put on Amazon, it's actually on there, but if you want the hard copy of How to Double Your Sales by Asking a Few More Questions, order that on Sid Walker. And I'll put those notes in an email to you later. That's my biggest selling book, How to Double Your Sales by Asking a Few More Questions. It's older too, but anyway, that's a favorite. So anyway, if you want the referral book, then get the Kindle version. That's got a lot of updates. And then so these are my 2 latest books. I've got the #1 book on overcoming call reluctance and increasing your prospecting. I waited 30 years to write that book, so I've got some pretty amazing reviews on that one. You can check that out. If you type in call reluctance and Sid Walker, that'll pop right up. And then Living in the Zone, Engage the Unstoppable Power of the Intuitive Spirit. That's my more spirit-based approach. I wrote that last summer. I'm getting ready to write another one. But that's a powerful book. If you're I basically, when I sign that book for people, I just say this book will make you unstoppable. Once you learn how to control your ego and how to ignore it, same in sports, same in the monastery, any kind of meditative state. That's all the same. That's all the same thing. When you're in the zone, you're in the present moment. You're blocking out the ego and all of its negativity, and that makes you good at anything you want to do. And anybody can do it, but it's not. We're not taught to do it. Most people are taught to listen to the ego, and they don't even know they're doing it. It's amazing when you start to realize how much negativity you're listening to all day, and you can just block all that out. Yeah, it takes some practice. Again, it's given me a job to teach people how to do it, but it's very doable. So anyway, check those out. Both of these books are on audio. My other books are not. I'm selling a ton of audio on both of these. All right. So I think I'm coming up pretty close here. Coming up on the hour. I'm going to do a Q&A, so I'll say goodbye to everybody. Some of you I know have to go. You're busy. I will get, if everything went well on the recording, I will get this out. I won't know about that until later on today, but that's usually not a problem. And so let me thank everybody for being on the call here today. I'd say that probably the main thing to remember here today is don't push people, honor people, be sensitive. You've done a lot of work to make people clients. You don't want to upset them in any way. But the thing is, you've got a money printing machine. If you get out and ask everybody, take them through a referral process similar to what I told you today, I guarantee you're going to make lots of money because it's the strongest lead you're going to get. People buy 2 or 3 times faster, they buy in less time, and then they buy more often. That's been proven by many different studies. So take an idea or two from the day, go try it out. That's the biggest thing. As a coach, I'm always trying to get people to try things. That's the key to growth. Try something new. Saw a lot of familiar names today, so and then we got a lot of new names on there. So we had a great crowd, and I appreciate everybody giving me some time here today, and hopefully you got some things you can use. So we'll do this again. So I'll say goodbye for now, and probably we'll do something again here in a couple months. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. I think I'm going. Give me 1 second here.